Hey guys, this is Harrison from Coffee House, and I've got a super exciting video here for you today. So I'm going to be comparing a Japanese oolong versus a classic Taiwanese oolong. So real quickly, as I dive in here, I've got my baozong, just your very standard, very amazing high mountain Taiwanese oolong here. And then I have our Japanese oolong here. And the reason I'm comparing these two as opposed to, maybe a Chinese oolong is the way the Japanese oolong and the way that the Taiwanese oolong kind of works is that they're both very lightly oxidized. And obviously you can find some lightly oxidized Chinese oolongs as well, but I find that the flavor compounds that exist between these two origins tend to be a little bit more similar, but there are some very stark differences. So I kind of want to go in, I'm going to brew them a couple different ways, but I'm going to keep all of the parameters more or less the same. So I've got a gaiwan on this side for my Taiwanese oolong, and then also I've just got like a little Kinto teapot here. This is like the One Touch from Kinto. It's my favorite teapot that Kinto sells. But yeah, let's dive in. So what I'm gonna do just before I get started here is I'm gonna preheat my vessels. So I'm gonna get this one cooking, and then for my gaiwan, I'm just gonna pop it right in the kettle here. The water that I'm gonna be working with today for these oolongs, I'm gonna keep it at like 192. That is in Fahrenheit, of course. But I prefer to not hit oolongs on the boil, whereas I've done a lot of testing both ways. You can still, especially the more oxidized, the hotter you can get. But with these, I find that if you go anywhere above 195, you are going to get a specific amount of astringency, and a lot of that kind of bee pollen, honey-esque characteristics start to kind of die off. But again, it will be good either way. It is a matter of personal preference at the end of the day. But let's move forward here. So now that I've got both of these preheated, let's do this. So I'm going to start here. I've got my baozong that I'm loading in here, and it's going to be 4 grams of this, and then I went to 3 grams for this. The reason I did that is I generally find, and I have tasted both of these side by side, you kind of get a little bit more flavor per gram on the Japanese oolong. And again, when we try it, I'll kind of explain a little bit more as to what's going on. But especially, I want this to be a little bit closer to gong fu on the Taiwanese side of things. So I'm going to go in with 100 mils of water here, and I'm going to be doing 100 mils in both of them. Okay. All right, and now we wait. So one of the main things about these two oolongs, especially in comparison to more of the Chinese oolong spectrum, is I'm not going to wash these. I'm going to keep the first steep as is. I'm not going to just kind of throw a little bit in, dump it out, and then kind of go for my first steep. I'm going to let these go all the way through. So one of the reasons that is because of the lighter oxidation spectrum that exists here. We don't get as much of those earthy, kind of more, I don't want to say bitter, but I guess more of those kind of earthy, astringent characteristics. These tend to be very, very sweet through and through. So I want to preserve that. I want to keep everything in there so that I can taste everything that exists here. So we're hitting 1 minute for both of these. Even if I'm doing gong fu brewing on Taiwanese oolongs, I actually prefer to go through a full 1 minute rather than like a 30-second or a 45-second steep. I find that especially, with these oolongs here, because of that lighter thing that I was talking about, you kind of just get you just get a little bit more out of it. And then it also brings the sweetness of that second steep up a little bit more too. But here, if I bring both of these up here, there's a pretty vast difference between these two teas, just right off the bat. So notice how this, I kind of get more of like a pale green, almost kind of like a slightly kind of yellow. There's a little purple in there too. And this is like the color of honey. It is just sheer golden. And just for those of you who may be skipping ahead or anything, this is the Taiwanese baozong, and this is that Japanese classic oolong here. So how is this going to transfer to taste is the question. So let's just dive in right now. So I'm going to start off with this baozong. This is one that I have spent a lot of time with. And again, just on the nose, if I compare both, this one smells like a true like clover honey, and you kind of get almost these deep kind of nuttier, warmer notes. Whereas this one, you get more chamomile in it. You get more floral notes, and it's almost like, interestingly enough, like the perfect mix of flavors. So I wonder what these would taste like if they were blended even, and that's something that maybe I'll try later for another video. But this is going to be a very exciting one. So again, I'll get in here. Wow, okay. So, super good. Very warm on the front of the palate, and as it continues back, and it kind of as it exists on my palate after the fact, lots of flowers. I mean, it's very, it's very floral without any form of astringency, like I had said before. So, super delicious, super sweet, but very, very, very light. I know a lot of baozongs tend to be this way, but in general, I am more used to them kind of turning out a little bit more like this. A little less thick than this one, because I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of got that classic Japanese kind of borderline gelatinous kind of vibe going on. But this is very classic tea, like just very thin, but not drying at all. And that's something that I think is very important, because a lot of times in tea, when there's a lot of floral notes, it'll be very, very, very dry. But this one, it's got a semi-dry element going on, but overall, I'm just, I'm overwhelmed in a positive way with the sweetness. But let's, enough about this one. Let's kind of dive into this Japanese one just to compare real quick. So again, much warmer on the nose. Oh man. Okay, so this one is incredible. This one is gonna be, I don't want to say my favorite of the two, but it's just got a little bit more depth. I mean, do not get me wrong, this baozong has a lot of depth, but this one, you get, again, there's almost like a cinnamon and anise note in the aroma as well, but yeah, just that strong clover honey smell. It brings that floral, kind of aspect to the backdrop, and brings just that very nice sweetness, much warmer than the sweetness of this one up front of the palate. So for a first steep, it's incredible. There's even a very strong note after the fact of peaches. Like, not a slight note, like it tastes like peaches. It's pretty crazy. Like if you've ever had like a peach sparkling water, or like one of like the Japanese like peach sodas, for example, like the ramune, it's that, like clear as day, like peach flavor exists just in the background of this tea. And that's something that is honestly pretty mind-blowing, especially when it comes to, when we talk about flavor notes and palate training, a lot of these things are things that you have to search for sometimes. This is just, there's no other way to describe it other than that's exactly what it is. I had a couple friends try this one too, and they were like, why does this taste like peach? And yeah, it's pretty amazing. And that's, I think, again, why, sorry to say, my younger self being a huge baozong fan, it's pretty crazy to find something that can top that flavor profile. So I'm gonna go in real quickly for a second steep before we wrap this up. I just kind of want to get one more consensus on this, but it is a very common question that I get of, a lot of people in this area are, being like Detroit, Midwest, are very into Taiwanese high mountain oolongs, which, as they should be, they're absolutely incredible. But something that we just don't see over here, especially in Michigan, is Japanese oolongs. It's just, they're very far and few between, and they vary a lot in the way they're produced, very similar to how they are in China. So I'm gonna pull this at 30 seconds this time, a much shorter steep time. and a little bit thinner on the body this way around. But as you can see, we've almost got an even more stark contrast in color this time. Whereas it was the first time pretty intense, this is completely different. This one, the Baozong now has developed a much firmer body. You know, it's got almost like layers to it. You know, if I move it, the top layer moves around much quicker than the layer underneath, and then the layer underneath, and that is even more stagnant. All the leaves are suspended. I don't know if you can see in there. Whereas this one has continued to maintain its uniformity throughout. That is neither here or there. Both of those things are just individual characteristics of the tea. I don't find that as a way of grading what I prefer. It's just kind of a fun element of trying new things, I suppose. So again, I'm gonna dive in, same order as last time. I'm gonna try this Baozong. And this second steep is really what makes these Baozongs so famous. Just, again, that floral element is kind of calmed this time. It exists, but it's just a very, very refreshing experience through and through. This is a tea that I find is a really nice daily drinker. Something that, like, you know, if I want something that I don't want to overwhelm me with flavor and overwhelm me with all these different things, you know, this is kind of the way to go. This is amazing. I get a little bit more astringency this time around, but I mean, when I say a little, I'm being picky here. But that peach note that was existing on the back end of the palate last time is completely up front this time. You know, peaches, honey, you still get that cinnamon, apple, anise notes on the nose. It's a very complex and very amazing tea. Still also an incredible option for daily drinking, but for something that's processed very similarly, they couldn't be more different in the realm that they exist. So really quickly, just so you can kind of see, because the dry leaves appeared very similar. The Baozong was a little bit lighter, but let me see if I can get a leaf in here so that you can kind of see just the difference of how they've opened up over time here. The Japanese oolong has opened up much more significantly than the Baozong, which makes sense, especially with the color that you saw. But also, something to mention is that the leaves on the Japanese oolong are much larger. But yeah, here, I can show. There's your Japanese oolong. And then there's your Baozong. Okay. So existing at similar elevations here and similar processing methods, just to wrap up, they couldn't be more different, but they both serve such an incredible purpose in the world of oolong and what it is to enjoy an oolong. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you're having fun trying these out with me. And if you have any questions or anything, please let me know. Again, my name is Harrison from Coffee House, and I'm excited to see you next time. Thank you.